So who's on the job hunt? How many times have you been on the job hunt and you see a job and you like the title and you click on the job and then you're going down the list of requirements and you're like, skills required, and you look at the list and you're like, oh, I don't have those skills. I can't apply for the job. Even if you'd really like to do the job. Maybe you think, I could kind of sort, and you're like, I don't fit the requirements. It says it needs this and these are the skills. And you say, that's it, I'm out. I'm not going to apply for this job. Well, the job market is changing. For those of you hunting for work, maybe you've seen this. And our next guest is here to explain the direction the job market is going and how this may be working out in your favor if you're one of those people that feel, oh, geez, I don't have those skills. Maybe you do. Ajay Pangarkar is on the line, workforce performance strategist, award-winning author. Ajay, welcome back to the show.
Oh, it's great to be back, Elias. And that intro was fantastic because do you remember the days when you sort of got into your first job and then realized that maybe this isn't it, and then you wanted to change it to something different, but realized that maybe you had to go back to school and get another degree or another diploma?
Yep.
Those days are, well, I wouldn't say they're gone, but they're easing up a little bit. So there's some good news for both the employers and employees nowadays.
And I guess, Ajay, why are they easing up? Why are employers easing up? I would imagine, the unemployment rate is so low. Good employees are so hard to find. You're going to sort of be able to bend over backwards to get great talent.
Well, we talked about this before, Elias. This whole what they call the big quit or the great resignation, all this stuff that's happening during the pandemic, and people have been asking me why this is happening. Well, one is that people are reevaluating what's important to them in their lives, and they're realizing that work, number one, is not necessarily should be the focus. It should be their life and everything around them. And number two is that if I'm going to work, and I have to work, most of us do, I would think 99% of us do, have to work, then let's find something that really brings some joy into my life as well. And so this is what's happening right now, that people are looking for things that they can really add value to, that contributes not only to the employer but to their lives. So what's happening now is that the question would be for these people is, how do I make that change? And what's interesting, the educational side of things, is that where you and I grew up in a world where we were forced to do certain degrees to move into a new role and spend years again to go into that role, there's something now called micro-credentials. And a lot of academia is sort of grasping their mind around this, but what it actually means is that I can go to a credible source, learning or educational source, find the skills I need, and this is not just don't go to YouTube and find a local expert. I'm talking about actual things like I work with LinkedIn Learning, for example, where they create certificates backed by really accredited individuals like myself, shameless plug, to develop these courses, and they're packaged into these certificates or diplomas on LinkedIn Learning that you can take that employers are recognizing. And they're really well structured and well thought out in different fields and different industries. So you can get these certificates, and they will be seen favorably by employers to be able to, get you into that new role. So
what was that term you used, Ajay? What was that term you used? Was it micro skills?
Micro credentials.
Micro credentials. Okay, I love that term, by the way. It sounds like basically one step up from I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, but I get it. But it does make sense to me, Ajay. Listen, I want to get to this other term. I love micro-credentials, and I think it's really apropos. But this other term I keep hearing, transferable skills. What does that mean?
So, at this point, a lot of skills that we're taking in, we don't realize that we can apply to other jobs. So there was an example in an article that I read. I think I sent it to you, Elias. But the article I read was interesting because the example is a server in a restaurant. A lot of us look, well, a server, they just take orders, they go bring it to the cook, and that's it. No, they have a lot of transferable skills like customer service and interaction with the clients where they have to, satisfy our needs as far as, being able to service adequately, making sure that we're happy with our foods and so forth, and have that pleasant conversation. Or the multitasking skills where they're dealing with us, dealing with the cooks in the back of the kitchen, make sure the orders are correct, dealing with input into, the computer systems to make sure the bill is being added up correctly and so forth. All these skills that compile can be transferred to other roles. Now think about it. You take the customer service skills and then transfer it to something like a sales person or an account manager of a company, and then you have that transferable skills right there. Or maybe you have that multitasking skills where you can manage multiple tasks that a company is looking for. So you can move from, let's say, being a server into something more interesting within a corporate environment. So you have to take an inventory of yourself. Be honest. Think about the skills that you're actually applying, and how can they be used elsewhere. And it's not difficult to think about that.
We're with Ajay Pangarkar, workforce performance strategist, award-winning author. So, Ajay, it seems to me that now, more than ever, when you are looking at a job listing and there's 10 requirements, and you know what, you aren't a direct fit on 8 of those job requirements. Yep. Now would be the best time we've ever had in the job market to say, you know what, I'm still going to apply.
Listen, Elias, this is really interesting as far as time, because it's like the planets are aligning. One is that we have on the employee side an ability to look at their skills and actually apply it to other skills, like you said, transferable skills. We can get micro-credentials to fill up skills that we're missing and do it quickly rather than go back to a 2-year degree or a 3-year degree or something like that. So we have these micro-credentials that can fill that gap. And on the other side of the coin, you have employers saying, hey, we do need good people, and we're going to cast the net a little bit wider here rather than look at the standard, siloed, you have a degree in X and that's where we're going to hire. We're going to cast it a little wider and see, what are the people that really can flex? And you use the term bend over backwards. Well, that's pretty appropriate, right? We're looking at people who can actually adopt, and come into an environment that they have transferable skills. They were willing to learn new skills very quickly, which is another transferable skill, by the way, and come into a role that maybe they'll do exceptionally better. Let me use the last example with you, Elias. I had a friend. She is exceptional. I still have her as a friend. She's exceptional, and I found her 3 different jobs. And each job, she didn't have the skills to go into it. And I said to the people hiring them, I said, you need to have this person on your team. She's going to do circles around what you had before. And she did that every single time. And so you have the ability to change a job. You just have to take inventory of what you have and make sure that you can look at the 7 out of the 10 skills. I can do those skills, and how do I fulfill the last 3, either through transferable skills or micro-credentials?
Ajay, this reminds me of a story I shared on my Twitter recently. I don't know if you saw this. I retweeted it with the headline, "Fake it until you make it." Yes. And it was a story about the keyboardist for the band Radiohead, and how when he joined the band, he did not know how to play a keyboard. He just turned off the volume coming from the keyboard and pretended. And then every night he would go home and train himself on the keyboard until eventually he felt confident enough to turn on the actual sound coming from the keyboard. And I'm like, you know what? You need a bit of that.
You do, but allow me to add one cautious moment to that, if I may. I'm watching this Netflix series called Inventing Anna, and some people could argue that this person was trying to fake it till they make it to build something, but underneath it all, she was basically, a con woman. And so, it's admirable somebody tries to do that, but be careful. There's that imposter syndrome, that deer in the headlight syndrome, that even when you have the skills, sometimes you question why did they actually hire you. So I admire people like that, but I'd be careful walking into those kind of scenarios.
It goes from, do you have no skills or do you have the transferable skills? And in the example I gave, the guy was a guitarist and he knew how to play 5 instruments. He just didn't know the keyboard yet. So there's the transferable skill thing, and not being
exactly. He had the worth to go. He had the music background and the experience to do that. Exactly.
Ajay, fun talk. I hope we've given some enthusiasm to a few of our listeners on jumping into the workforce and maybe going after a job they would not normally think they're qualified for. Ajay, thanks so much.
I hope you're not thinking about transferable skills, because you do a great job, Elias. I really enjoy being with you. And I hope people get value out of our conversation. So thank you.
You stay safe in near the nation's capital, Ajay, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Elias, and you have a great day, okay?
Ajay Pangarkar, workforce performance strategist and award-winning author.